is up, guys? It's great to see everyone again. Thank you so much. It's a great day to be squared away. Hey, we got a good one this time. We are going to be talking about purchase agreements. Not everyone has had the opportunity, but some of you have to be able to put in a purchase offer in Indiana. Now, for some of you guys that are getting out of state, this is a great opportunity to understand how our process, our step-by-step process goes. So we'll be able to go over one today, right now. Let me know if you have any questions, man. All right, so let us begin. Hey, what's up, guys? Already, man, you guys were ready to go. All right, so let's get into it. Let's see here. Bam! Come on, bam! Let me know when it's. Come on, oh, it's loading up. There we go. All right, so let's check it out. Let's check it out. And let me see if I can put myself real small in here. Okay, so a purchase agreement. Let's talk about it. What is a purchase agreement? So a purchase agreement is how anybody purchases anything and how anybody purchases a property, whether it is your piece of land, whether it's your residential property, whether it's commercial, doesn't matter what, we all abide by the same general concept here. Okay. So in Indiana, we have these forms that are brought to you by the NIRA, Northwest Indiana Realtors Association. The great part about this, they got their own realtors that are consistently, they got their own attorneys that are consistently coming out. Hey, what's up, Senya? How you doing? How you guys doing? So let's get down into it. At the very top, you're going to see the two brokerages that are going to be involved. Your listing side, right? The people that are helping the listing clients. And then your buying side, or they also call us the selling agents or selling brokers. Then as we move down, sorry, I definitely have to work on my camera and reception. So I'll be working on that. So the way that I explain this to a lot of people is that there's a number line that goes north to south, and we're going to be using that. We're going to start from the very top number at 1 and go all the way to the bottom until we go through it. So let's see this one. So line 1, of course, is going to be your date. Line 3 is going to be where you have your buyer's name, right? So if you're purchasing a property, this is where your agent or somebody like yourself would put your name. Now, one thing to be mindful of, what kind of name do you want to have on this? Do you have a middle name? Sometimes they give you a hard time at the title company if you don't put your middle name. Now, you do have the opportunity to put whatever you'd like, but just make sure it's consistent with whatever kind of business that you're running here. Because I've had situations where, there was a situation not too long ago where somebody was putting the word mount in with their name and then also MT. So that kind of creates an issue because what is it? Is it the word mount, involved, or just MT? Because those are two different entity names. Now you're going to have a whole title issue and a bunch of things going on. So make sure always be careful with what name you put in. Line 7, property's name, your town, your township. So for those of you that don't know, there are these overview districts, I guess you could call them, or overview areas within different towns and unincorporated areas. So next we got the county and then the zip code, of course, right here. So this is unique. You're going to see it's called legally described. This is the true name of your property here. So this is something that throws off a lot of people because they think, oh, this one is just going to be essentially, the address again. No, it's going to be a very defined what the developer created when he was, working with the city to organize it. The next part is line 17, and I also like to say 20 included. You probably can hear my dogs. I hope you guys don't hear my dogs here. So anyways, line 17, this is saying about different personal properties that could either be affixed or not affixed. And what does affixed mean? That means your ceiling fan. That means your, some people have like lights, that are in the ceilings, like let's say, what are those called? The fluorescent lights and stuff like that. Those are all items that have to be accounted for because that isn't necessarily what's part of the property. Yes, me and you can look at it and be like, yeah, that's part of the property. If you remove it, that's going to be an issue. But some people, if you don't itemize it, it's going to be an issue. Normally in here, I always put kind of not applicable if there's not necessarily a push or pull to be able to have things in there removed. But definitely something to be mindful about. There's a funny story actually where somebody had seen a Simpsons cutout and thought it was so cool that they wanted it. So in their purchase offer, they said right underneath the line 18 that they would like the Homer Simpson item to stay. So line let's start at 27 to 29. So this is essentially saying, hey, buyer beware. We're going to tell you everything we know about the property, but it's still your responsibility to do your own due diligence. What are you doing to be able to make sure that make sure that you're buying what you know you have here? And this one's specific to measurements right in the room. It's your job to go in the room and make sure that the rooms are the correct size and distances. Line 31, of course, the price. Everybody loves that number, sellers and buyers. One thing that a lot of people don't understand is that price isn't, to you and me, it just sounds like when you hear price, you're like, aha, you know what I mean? Sometimes getting the highest price isn't the best option. There's a lot of times where you run into situations where it's like, okay, I'll offer you $200,000 with 6% seller concessions. What is seller concessions? That's the seller paying for your closing costs up to 6% of the total purchase price. Okay, well then the offer's really not 200,000. It's really 200,000 minus whatever that 6% of 200,000 is. What is that? That's 12,000. So what? Now you actually are getting an offer for 188. That's things to keep a mention to, because let's say for example there's 3 offers, and one offer, let's say you're selling your property, right? One offer is an FHA, one's a conventional, and another one's a conventional. You're not even going to want to look at this one that's coming in at FHA, because those people are the people that have, they're getting qualified at a lower credit score. They're putting the least amount down, and they're the most restrictive. So a lot of people will go and choose a conventional, no matter if it's more money, just because of the safety and the probability of close there. So definitely things to keep paying attention to. Earnest money. So what is earnest money? Earnest money is this this fund of money, and they call it good faith money, because essentially what you're going to do is you're going to say, hey, seller, I want to buy your property. I'm going to toss up this much amount of money. Usually it's between 1% and 3% of the total purchase price. So let's say it's $100,000 property. Seller, I'm going to put up $1,000, and this is saying that I'm truly serious about purchasing your property. If I'm not, there's a chance that you can have the money. I'm putting it into a neutral place. A lot of places like the listing brokerages to hold the money. Personally, I don't like that. I like it being in a neutral place. Chicago Title, shout out to you guys. You guys are awesome. You guys love investors. You guys do wholesale. You guys do amazing things. So shout out Chicago Title. But anyways, let's see here. After I put down my full name, they never asked any questions. So why are FHA loans considered riskier? So this is a really, really good question. If you're from a seller's perspective, right? And let's say you're selling your property, and you understand that for one, FHA means that they're not coming with as much down. So they don't have that much that they're necessarily, this is just one idea, right? This is probably the weakest idea, but let's start with that one. They're putting in 3.5%, 3.5% down. They're not really putting that much down. So it's a little easier for them to walk away, or it's a little easier for them to be like, oh, I'm not serious. Whereas if you see somebody putting 20% down, you're like, okay, this guy must be a little bit more serious. He must have his stuff a little bit more together. Plus, right off the top of your head, somebody that's conventional has a higher credit score than someone who went FHA. Now let's take that portion out, because that's really the weakest portion to argue for FHA. The other areas, right? The requirements. FHA is going to require top to bottom. That place needs to look great, right? Because this is for the homeowners. And if I'm not mistaken, FHA stands for Federal Housing Authority. I believe that's what it stands for. And these are government-backed loans. Essentially, it's saying that this needs to be at this very high standard in order for us to truly believe that it's going to be safe for our people. So it's going to ask you to have things like handrails. It's not going to want to see any paint that's chipped. It's not going to want to see, any little nook and cranny that isn't perfect. And it's going to pop up a lot of unnecessaries, right? But you look at conventional, right? What is conventional? Conventional, they're pretty straightforward. They're just like, hey, we're going to give you a loan if this value comes back at the same amount that you're purchasing it as. We're good to go. So people like that conventional way more than they like the FHA. Now let me throw a big one at you. Let's say we go and we put we're in the seller's position. We get an offer for FHA. We accept it. We go through the transaction. We're in the inspection. We go to appraisal. Appraisal comes back. Now FHA is saying that, the FHA inspector is saying, appraiser is saying, oh, this is actually $20,000 less. I have to look up, but and I might be mistaken. It might be 3 years, but I believe it's 5 years. You can't attempt to resell above the amount that they marked you at. So this becomes a big issue for a lot of these sellers when they talk about FHA. What am I saying? Let's say, for example, you're selling your property at $200,000, right? You accept an FHA buyer. They come in, they say it's worth $140,000. Guess what? You're stuck with that $140,000 value. FHA is going to keep that on record for a number of years. I think it's between 3 to 5 years, something like that. And there's no selling to anybody FHA above that 140 mark. You can get it reassessed after that time's allowed. Now, when it comes to the conventional is like, hey, we come out there, we're going to assess if it matches up. This is the number we got, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Oh, it looks like we're coming in $20,000 down. Okay. Hey, another buyer that's, Federal Housing Authority. Hey, shout out to Ryan. I appreciate that. I'm not going to lie. I pulled that one out of thin air because I was like really worried I was going to say the wrong name. Hey, what's up, Chad? How you doing? Thanks for joining, guys. So, those are basically the differences, right? You're seeing a lot of restrictions when it comes to FHA, a lot of like guidelines, and it has to be, squared away. Whereas the conventional is like, hey man, if it equals the same value that our appraiser gets, we're good to go. All right, great. I mean, I've seen half put together houses, destroyed houses that went conventional. And as long as it matched the value of what they thought as far as comps, the appraisers thought as comps, they were able to continue on. So let's keep it going. So we were at earnest money. So the thing about earnest money, like I said, it's a promissory note that's put in between you and the seller. And it essentially is, your promise to continue through the transaction. After acceptance, you have so many days to get closed. You'll notice it down here. You'll have so many days to turn in this money. It could be 3, 5, 7 days. I usually like to add in the word business to be like 3 business days or 5 business days. Helps out a lot of you guys that are buying at a long distance. So definitely tell your realtor, if it's not me, tell your realtor to make sure it says business days under earnest money, because you'll be hurting when you're trying to submit that last minute, especially if you're not going Chicago Title. Chicago Title will let you wire in at ACH, the earnest money. Now, let's move on to the next thing. Right here, it's going to say, where do you want it submitted to? This is where I would type in Chicago Title. And then, after it's been received, they have 2 business days to offer you a receipt. The title company or whoever has received it. Distribution. So I kind of touched on this. This is saying the different directions the money can go. Will it go, will it go to you? This is the most ideal. It'll come back to you at closing as a credit, and essentially it's going to go toward your closing costs. That's best case scenario, right? Worst case scenario, we stop talking to them. They get mad at us or there's a dispute. Now they're going to try and say, we want the earnest money to let you out of the contract. Okay, so that's a way to lose it. Okay, the third option is obviously that, we decide, hey, we don't want this transaction no more. We both agree, mutual release. We're going to take the earnest money and walk out. Boom. 3 different ways that that earnest money can go. Boom, boom, boom. So on to the next page here. Method of payment. This is where I have a lot of fun because not a lot of, let me toot my own horn here. Not a lot of agents can use the full spectrum of this purchase agreement. Line 60 is regarding the methods of payment. There are 5 methods of payment. You can utilize the first one, cash, of course. Everybody knows cash. Cash is king. You got cash, you're able to buy stuff real easy, pretty straight through. Number 2, mortgage. You are able to say, hey, I am getting a loan. This is my pre-approval. I'm going conventional. I'm going FHA, such and such. Boom. Then you'll notice on line 3, 4, and 5, financing addendum here. This is where if you are, wanting to go down that creative financing route, and you guys have heard me talk about it with a lot of you guys about going that creative financing route, doing seller's finance and stuff like that. This is when I'm going to pull out that trusty form called financing addendum, and I'm going to be like, boom, we're going to create our own shit here. Hey, we're going to have, 10% down. We're going to have 4% interest. We're going to have term length 20 years. We're going to trade a house for a boat. We're going to, we're buying this crypto. Boom, 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 boom. Hey, what about assumptions? Boom. You guys see it right here. I want to do a mortgage assumption right there. Boom. That's how I do it. Maybe one of these days, I'll show you guys the financing addendum. It's pretty straightforward. It's not very complicated. Anyways, line 80, time of obtaining financing. So there's going to be a time restriction you guys are going to have in order to get the financing. Now, if you guys did a pre-approval, you guys are pretty much halfway there when it comes to the application process. There might be more paperwork that your lender has you fill out, but the likelihood is you're pretty much there. So any days that are marked there, you're not going to have to really worry about. Usually I put anywhere from 7 to 10 days on there. Then we talk about the approval, line 85, approval. So what I'll normally put there is whatever the time length is for the closing. So normally you want to put, anywhere from the closing to 5 days before the closing. Granted, most people don't say clear to close, and or you can't close unless you have clear to close 3 days beforehand. Things happen all the time differently. I mean, I've had situations where, like I was literally standing in the closing. We hear clear to close, we get funded, boom, all at once. But standard practice is let's get the clear to close and then plan it out 3 days later for the closing. I always like to put 30 days in here. Why? Because your standard traditional financing, that's FHA or conventional, is going to be 30 to 45 days. A lot of lenders say that. It really takes them about 22 days. That's how many days they really need. So it's about a week shy of what, that way they can fix any issues that pop up. So, I mean, I always put 30 days. That might be pressing, as some people like longer, but yeah. So closing. Check this out. So closing in, obviously, hey, this is the day we're all going to come meet. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk. We're going to fill out some paperwork, and I am going to take possession. You guys will see possession here later. And possession is the true term that you all are interested. Closing is cool. You can finish it out. You can pay someone. That's cool. Possession is where you can start making money, this is just itemizing. Hey, this is going to be the closing date. You'll notice that this says on or before. So what does that mean? That means, hey, I might put in here, hey, we're going to close in May, but this is also saying if we close in April, we close in April. Now, what happens if we go past May? Well, if we go past May, now we got to send out an extension and we got to get their permission to extend the closing date. Now we got a big risk going on because guess what? If we're on the selling side and they're like, oh, they're not ready to close, they're wanting to make us wait a little bit longer to get our money. Let's start, renegotiating here. You want $100 a day from us if we don't give you possession? Well, we're going to charge you that back. Hey, $100 a day until you're ready to close. That's happened before. That sucks because now you're in a position where you either don't get the house or you pay additional money to get the house for, whatever the time slot is. That stuff racks up fast. I've seen it happen before where somebody got charged $900 on top of everything to be able to close it because their lender was taking their time, So right here, fees. So you're going to see here with fees, there's one that says for the buyer, including in allowance, the seller, and equally shared. I always mark equally shared here because most of the time this is, this is regarding your title fees and your government fees. So when you're saying shared equally, that's saying, hey, you're going to pay for your portion, I'll pay for my portion, and then, we'll be good, right? When do you want to cover someone else's fees is when you're really trying to do like a seller finance or some type of creative, way. Other than that, maybe if you're doing wholesale or something like that, other than that, there's really no incentive to be able to do that. So let's see. And then of course, having the seller pay for all fees, man, that's most sellers aren't going to go for that. You know what I mean? They're going to want, they're going to want you to be offering a hell of a deal in order for them to cover all fees. All righty. So let's see here. Line 97, contingency. So this is saying if you have to do something before you sell. Hey, what's up, Senya? Am I messing up something? What's going on? What was it? If you have to sell something before you purchase, you're going to write it in here. So let's say, for example, you have a property that your house you're living in, and you need to sell that in order to purchase. Well, I'm going to write that in right here saying, this is going to be the date that we're closing, and we're going to close by this. Oh, okay. That's the date, but this is the address and that's the date, or that's the property and that's the date. In the event that you don't have something to do, or don't have a property to sell in order to buy, you're going to mark here, or an agent's going to mark it for you. So, this is a great tool because we're getting an opportunity to read what you're going to. Okay. Hey, Senya. Hey, so you said, hey, can you please cover your take on quiet title versus warranty title? So, quiet title. So this is what I'm familiar of, and I'm not an attorney, but this is what I understand. Warranty title is when a title company is going to cover you in case there's any liens, encumbrances, or other owners that could pop up on that property. Now, with warranty title, you're going through a title company. You're paying them some type of premium insurance that you guys will see later in this purchase agreement. And essentially you're saying, hey, cover me in case there's any issues. If an issue does pop up and they're like, hey, contractor from 10 years ago saying I got a lien on here for $20,000, it's the title company that's going to have to eat it, and it's happened before. There's been millions of dollars that title companies have had to eat. Quiet title. So what I think you're talking about is quitclaim, because quieting a title is something that I'm familiar with. I don't know about quiet title, but quieting a title is often something that you would hire an attorney to do. It's an action in where you are now going to say, hey, I want you to verify that there's nobody else that can own this property. It's only me. And what that attorney is going to do, this is very commonly found with tax sales. So like say, for example, you pick up the tax sale, you won the certificate, you went through the redemption period, you go to foreclosure. Now, after you finish foreclosure, you truly own it, but you still have to quiet the title. And essentially what that attorney is going to do, I want to say, I've been told it's like, it can take 2 to 6 months, and it's like $600 just by the way, for the quieting of the title. What the attorney is going to do is he's going to mail out and try to contact every single person that could be involved in the property. He's even going to slap something on the door of the house saying, hey, if you know anybody that has anything to do with this house, please let me know. And then a time period is going to start. I don't know exactly. I guess it depends on your property and your situation, but a time period will start. And that time period, somebody will have to respond. And if somebody responds, then they have a dispute. You can go into litigations to see who owns the house truly. If no one responds within this time frame, boom, you've quieted the title. You are now fine, truly the owner, covered in all bases. And then now you can sell it through a title company for a warranty deed. Without that, you're going to run into some issues. You either got to own it for 10 years or you got to, get the title quieted. There might be a third way. I'm not really sure about a third way, but you'll see that a lot. All right, let's keep it going. Hopefully that answered your question, Senya. So shout out. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So let's see here. So good funds. In the event that you are going to close with over $10,000 at the closing, you're going to have to wire it in. For most of you guys are going to have to wire it in anyways. You guys are investing at a distance, right? That's going to be something you'll have to do. Wire fraud. This is a section where I tell people, hey, most likely, I shouldn't say most likely. A lot of times people try to impersonate real estate professionals like myself, title companies, lenders, such like that. You need to be aware of everyone around you. So if you get an email saying, hey, send money here, please give me a call. I'll report it with you. because that's a very serious thing. There's a very sad story I knew of where this old lady got an email from someone and they were saying, oh, you have to send $120,000 over to this account number for the wiring funds. She ended up sending it over to like Pakistan or somewhere, and she lost $120,000. It was really sad. It was a deal with Macaulay, actually, when I was over there. And essentially, what they did, they had to go through so much litigation, so many lawsuits, and somehow, some way, they managed to figure out how to be able to get that money back for her. So it was pretty impressive, actually. But yes, they definitely will impersonate us. Possession. This is what I was talking about earlier. Actually, let me sit up. I'm getting tense here. All right. Possession. This is saying, okay, how are you going to start taking over the property? Is it going to be at closing? Are they going to pass you the keys at closing? And they're like, hey, you're good luck. Are they going to, give it to you in a certain number of days? This is usually beneficial for people that are transitioning from house to house. They need a certain amount of days to be like, okay, hey, the house is yours. Let us stay here a couple of days so we can close on the other ones and move over. That's something I've done before. Line 120, 122. So this is essentially saying, hey, seller, if you don't close by the time of the closing date, or if you don't give possession by the time of the closing date, it's going to be $100 a day until you give us that possession. And this you can rack up really fast, as a seller. You're like, oh shit, well, I'm not prepared in my next house. What am I going to do? I'm going to do this, that, this, but every single day that's $100. Boom, boom, boom. Line 124, maintenance of property. This is saying that it has to be in the same condition or if not better than what you have viewed it as. And for a lot of you, I'm taking pictures and photos, walking around, and you're getting a gist of how the property is. If we go back in there and all of a sudden the ceiling's gone and there's tons of tons of damage coming from the attic, then yeah, obviously they got to do something about it, or we get out of the contract. Casualty loss. So this is a really cool one. A lot of people don't know this. So in the event that something crazy happens, like a fire happens to the house in the middle of a transaction, the whole house burns down to a crisp. You get two options, right? You get one option to be able to obviously skedaddle and get your earnest money back. You get a second option to continue to close and claim on their insurance if they have property insurance. So if they have property insurance, it burns to a crisp, you continue on, you get that insurance lump sum, and you get to get a brand new house. Now, I hope I'm not incentivizing any of you to commit fraud or anything, but it's a very cool process. You'll be able to get a brand new house that way. So line 133, utility/municipal services. This is saying, hey, it is your responsibility as the seller to keep up with the utilities and municipal services. Guess what? If we don't have that, we're going to have an issue, right? And, it's really interesting. Sometimes people, they like turn it off and don't expect anything. And then all of a sudden you're like, we're going to have inspection. You have to have this on for inspection. And it's like, oh, well, we've been having it off for quite a while. One time, actually, this did happen once. One time I had been working with a deal over in Gary, and they had, we had walked into the house. Utilities were on, lights were on. The listing said that all of the utilities were on. We get to the closing. They're saying, oh, no, they're off. And I'm like, they're definitely on. And he's like, no, they're off. I sent him a screenshot saying, hey, bro, look at this. And it's a screenshot of his listing saying utilities on. And I swear I even had a picture of like a light bulb being on in the house. And he had to try and flip them on the day of closing because we had done the final walkthrough. And it's so funny. That same house ended up getting a busted pipe. So maybe he was trying to avoid something, or maybe they did something wrong. But yeah, day of closing, he flips everything on, pipe busts, now water spewing into the house. It was mayhem. And the greatest part is there was no property insurance on that one. So it sucked. But anyways, my guy ended up getting a tremendous deal on that property. So line 135, home heating fuel. So this pertains to old school houses that had like the propane tanks and the oil drip tanks and the coal and shit like that. Because you had portions, you had fuel. So you had to take that into account of how much is this new seller going to pay or new owner going to be getting versus how much you have in reserves yourself. Line 138, this is actually a new clause as of this past 6 months, I think. They've been doing, first of all, they've been doing a ton of like updates on the social on these contracts. I don't know why. The past like year, like I've been in this for about 4 years now. And the past year, they have flipped this contract 100 times, I feel like. And now in July, we're going to have this buyer brokers requirement. So it is what it is. But anyways, line 138 to 143, leased property. So this is saying, hey, we are going to go purchase this property that may have a lease in it. You have 7 days to give us any contracts or anything that pertains to this property. And then we have 7 days to accept it under these conditions. Because you never know. What if they're saying, oh, I actually had a situation not too long ago with a client that was interested in a house out in Michigan City. They were like, oh yeah, it's a 8-unit property. One was a commercial. They're making 915 a unit, something like that. Yeah. And, they're like, I had asked for, I'm trying to remember, damn. I had asked, I was like, okay, can we see the rent roll in the lease? That's the usual question, right? We want to see, hey, let's see how much they're actually under contract for. Let's see if that contract is keeping us required to have them when you purchase it. And then let's see how consistently they've been paying, right? Any investor, that should be the first thing you try and get from your realtor or your seller. And she's like, oh, well, I'm not at liberty to disclose the leases. I'm like, okay. All right. Some of these realtors think that they're like attorneys sometimes. And it's like, bro, come on. Me and you both know what's going on here, usually when I get some type of backlash like that, most likely there's no leases. And come to find out, after explaining to her and her manager that I needed to see the leases in order to determine if those leases were still active, if they were going to have any guidelines that restricted us from purchasing, we're not going to go into a purchase offer and not know if these properties are going to require specific things or accommodations. So come to find out, there was no leases. She was, pulling my leg. And it is what it is. Hey, it happens, but we were able to protect those clients, So let's keep it going. Surveys. Hey, I hope you guys can't hear my dogs. Sorry if you can hear my dogs. They're out there having a great time trying to let me know about deals, But investments, that's what I need to start saying. I used to say that for a lot of my realtor videos and stuff. I'm going to start saying investments. So investment deals. There you go. Anyways, so survey. This is something that's really interesting because there's 2 types of surveys. And really, as your realtor, I can provide you what's called a GIS map, which is very, very similar to one of these surveys. There's 2 surveys. One is called a plat map. Plat map is like a picture or a drawing that a surveyor will provide you that has a description on the measurements of your property, the shape of your property, and any type of, specifics he can write down on that piece of paper picture. The second one is the stick and boundary, or they call it the boundary survey now. And essentially, that's where they put stakes in the ground. They put the little flags on it, and they say, hey, this is where your fence is. This is where your line stops. This is where your line stops. Super, super important if you're planning on putting a pool, amenities. For you investors that are out here doing Airbnbs, doing any type of destination or accommodations for your clients, be aware that those stakes need to be in the ground if you're going to add a pool or add fencing. Something that I learned the hard way with another client that wanted to put a pool in, and we've ended up finding out that they didn't get their boundary survey. So let's move on. Flood area. So usually I mark here May. This is just saying that in the event that this is a flood area, we find out it's a flood area, you have a couple of options. You got one option to be like, hey, I don't want this contract. I want out. I want my earnest money back. Boom, let's get out. The second option is, hey, this property, oh, it's just amazing. It's going to be making me so much money, blah, 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 blah. I want to keep this. And then I'm going to say, well, then you're going to have to get a flood insurance certification or certificate. You can get that from your insurance agent, or sometimes your lender will take care of that for you. So line 161, building use limitations. So what are you going to use this for? You're going to use it to own or occupy? Most of you guys are out of state, so I don't assume that. Unless you're trying to get an exemption, I'm just kidding. But then, what I would select for most of you guys is other and investments. Why is this important, right? I would say that this is only important when you're talking about taxes. There we go. So the way that Indiana works is, for one, we pay taxes in arrears. For two, there's a bracketing system, or they call them capped system, when it comes to taxes. It's three different types. There's a 1%. Ooh, damn. Okay. 1%. I was going to start it out this way and go inward. There's a 1%. That's when you're owner occupied, right? So you are going to be taxed 1% of whatever the value of your house is, or the assessed value of your house is. The second one, 2%, is if you are having that as an investment property. So most of you guys, you'll be probably dealing with 2% taxes of the assessed value. And then there's 3% if you're going to have a business out of it. If you're going to run some type of shop or some type of office, it's going to be a 3% tax. So that's the way that Indiana works, and that's the whole purpose of having this byline there. So line 165, homeowners insurance, usually I say about 14 days, 2 weeks. It's very quick. I mean, if you guys need a referral for anybody, I'll be able to hand it out. But excuse me, insurance, you could usually talk to whoever does your car, and they usually have great bundles you can just wrap in until you make it a separate business entity. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's keep it going. 169, environmental contaminants advisory / release. This is saying, essentially, hey, I'm going to be coming along with you for the ride of getting you a property, helping you build a business, right? You need to still take the initiative to go and make sure you're talking to the proper professionals. I'm going to put the proper professionals in front of you. It'll be your responsibility to call them, ask them the questions that you have, and see if there's anything you have concerns about. For example, you would not sue the wedding planner for the cake being messed up, right? I would hope not, unless, maybe she fell into it or, took a lick of it. But for the most part, you're probably going to sue the people that made the cake. This is why this holds harmless to a lot of realtors, because a lot of people get misconstrued like that. They want to sue us for everything. It's like, hey, we're here to guide you through the process here. We are not to be the person that is that direct person that you needed for that one specific thing. We are essentially like a wedding planner, but we are for your marriage to houses. So contact the proper professional. If you have concerns about termites being in the house, contact a termite professional. So let's move on to the next thing, inspections. So there's 3 types of inspections. One is going to be there's 2 types of inspections. One is to waive the inspection completely. The other one is an independent inspection. Independent inspection is saying, essentially, hey, I am going to go look at this property, investigate this property, send my inspector out there. I'm going to get a report. I'm going to find all this list of issues. Then I'm going to ask you to repair all the things that I don't like about the house. Then if you don't, then we can get out of the contract because we do not agree. The other thing is, let's say, for example, I see it and I just want to get out. Now we're causing a dispute and I didn't give you the legal right to remedy as the seller. So now we're going to be into a dispute, worried about earnest money again. The thing about the independent inspection is it's a great tool if you're just trying to look for a house that you want to live in and own. This is my recommendation. If you're going for a veterans loan, a FHA loan, conventional to occupy loan, those are great, great tools. The problem is I don't think it's the best one for investors. The reason why is because there is no guarantee that you will get your earnest money back, because now you are going into something where you're saying, hey, do this repair. If you don't, then I'm not going to continue with the transaction. They're going to be like, all right, well, give us the opportunity. Hey, that's not fair. Now we're into a dispute. That's not fair that you're trying to say that. So now we're going to not release your earnest money, and we're going to continue this on until we can come to a fair point, or we're going to go into litigation. What I like is this last option here. This last option is the as is. The as is addendum is essentially saying, right, and I say this loosely, right, and maybe maybe I'm not saying this loosely for those of you that are realtors out there, but for investors, right, as is addendums are specific to be able to tell the seller, hey, I'm not going to ask you to do any repairs. I'm not going to ask for any buyer's credits or changes in prices, but I'm going to do this inspection. If I find any undisclosed defects, which are going to be issues that come up with the home that you didn't already tell me in the seller's disclosure. Seller's disclosure is a paper that essentially says all the mishaps of the property, or all of what the seller knows about the property. If something pops up on the report that doesn't pop up on your seller's disclosure, I'm going to get out of this contract and I can take my earnest money. Now, I say that loosely because honestly, what a lot of investors or what a lot of realtors do is use it as a negotiation point. What they're going to do is they're going to essentially say, hey, we're going to go into this. We're going to tell them, hey, we're not going to ask you for any repairs or anything. You're not having to worry about it. It's going to be a take it or leave it. But when we actually get there, we're going to look and be like, okay, these are the things that we're not satisfied with. We're going to exit. Hey, seller, I'm just going to ask you this one more time. We're going to leave, but these are the reasons why. And then we're going to leave it open-ended. Seller's going to be like, oh, well, I mean, if that's the reasons, I can do something about that. If it's going to make us go forward with the transaction, they're going to be like, all right, sweet. Let's come to a middle ground amendment. You're going to do this repair. Boom, we're moving on, And, it's a negotiation tactic. It's definitely useful. You'll notice that some realtors do it. And it's nothing bad. It's a good way to be able to get your investor a good deal. Get you guys a good deal. That's something that you'll see regularly. All right, so this is where it's getting into what an inspection is. So this is like, say if we were going to independent inspection, line 208, 209 is saying how many days you're going to have for that inspection. I'll put up there 10 to 14 days. Hey, 10 to 14 days, we'll have to do 4 things. We'll have to get an inspector to go out there, schedule them, have them actually do it, the actual inspection, create the report, and then we're going to respond to the report after we read it. So those are 4 things that are happening during the inspection. And it takes time, you know what I mean? So 10 to 14 days sometimes is a tight window, but when you go beyond that, that's really a time waster for the seller. So it's a balancing act here, Line 217 here, this is just specifics on what they're going to cover or any additional things you're going to have them cover that are not already itemized in here. This is, of course, covering all the basic necessities, the roof, the ceilings, the walls, the, electrical, plumbing, and all that jazz, right? And then you got down here, section C is additional inspections. If you have concerns about termite, the inspector is going to say, hey, concerns about termite, recommend talking to a termite expert. Then you're going to have additional days. Usually I'll put in like 5 days here. And during those 5 days, I'm going to send an inspector out there that's for termites to see what's going on. All right. And then inspection response required. So this is what I was talking about with those independent inspections. So you'll have to respond no matter what. You don't get to just leave the contract like an as is. You'll have to say, hey, these are my concerns about the property. What can you do about it? Oh, we're willing to do this, this, and not this. Oh, we can't come to terms. We go into a mutual agreement and leave. Or we, accept and move forward from there, So line 230, if defect is identified. It obviously defines what a defect is. This is going to say that a defect is anything that is adversely affecting the property's value. So if there is a broken hot water heater, right, that's probably going to be a defect, because guess what? Now you got to pay for a new hot water heater. You got to get it installed. It's going to cost you a good amount of money. I think it's $1,500. Maybe that's not a lot of money, but I'm still going to pretend like it's worth a lot of money because I'm going to try and get you a better deal. And obviously nobody can use the water at the time. So if we were to close and we don't have a new water heater, then, who's going to be able to live in the house? Most of the time when you're seeing actual defects, you're going to see something like foundation issues where water's seeping into the foundation. There's crumbling or broken or settled foundation. Structure, you're going to notice that the whole house is doing that little cool lean, you know what I'm talking about, and then, stuff like the roof, water coming in from the roof, plumbing's not working. It's going to suck to live in that house. And then water not working, of course, we need water. I think the last thing on my list is electric. It's electric, boogie woogie. All right, so we're going to keep going on. Seller's response to inspection defect. Of course, we got to have them respond to everything. Defect defined, that's where it was saying, means a condition that would be significantly adverse effect to or on the property, on the value of the property. So anything that is going to bring down the property's value. Okay. So, and then, of course, you know, the inspection release, how to get out of that. Like I was saying, you can either accept it or deny it and go through a mutual release and get out of the contract. So line 249, limited home warranty programs. Just like when you go buy a laptop. I'm finally done with work. Time to shower and have dinner. Hey, all-nighter hider, bro. I know that 5-plex is kicking your butt, man. Shout out to you. Hopefully, you know, you got a lot of stuff done. So limited home warranty. Let's say you're going to go buy a laptop at the store, like Walmart. When you buy a laptop, they ask you, hey, would you like a warranty? 2-year warranty, covers you if anything breaks. This is kind of similar. Usually it's about $500. Usually, I mean, it depends on what comes in the package, and they're like insurance companies. For 12 months after you close on this house, you'll be protected. And if anything breaks, like your furnace, you can call and make a claim for $100, you know, saves you a ton of money. The thing is, it's a lot like insurance. It's not going to cover you in very specific scenarios, just like insurance. They're like, oh, well, this wasn't done properly, so, you know, we can't cover it. Okay, so disclosures. This is really interesting. And I'm going to show you guys a seller's disclosure here very shortly. Let's see if I can actually show you guys this instead of us just looking at this. This would be a good time to show you. All right. So the seller's disclosure is basically all of the knowledge that the seller has on the property. Let's see if we can open it up. Open it up. Oh, actually, I don't think I got one in here. Let me see if I can download one real quick. All right, bear with me, guys. Seller's residential disclosure. Bam! Let's do it. Might have to download the lead-based paint now. So this is what a seller's residential disclosure looks like, right? This is essentially a document that's saying all of the knowledge that the seller has on the property. Does it have a built-in fan? Does it have clothes, dryer for clothes? Yeah. And, a washer for clothes, a dishwasher, disposable, all of these details, plumbing. Hey, is it defective? Is it not defective? Is it to a public water system? Everything you could need. This is definitely the big ticket item when you're purchasing a house. If you're going to be purchasing a house, you better ask for the seller's disclosure. If you don't have it, you are going into risk because you don't know what's going on with that property. Now, granted, banks don't usually abide by this. Banks get their own set of rules with foreclosures and REOs, and they don't have to have this document. This is really a document that's held between the board members as realtors. So yeah, that's a 2-page document, and usually the stuff that's not good to see is going to be written in on this little box here or this box here. So it'll be like, oh yeah, there's there is a tree sticking out of the kitchen. So, all right, let's back up. And the second one was lead-based paint. So let's go back. I'm not going to show you guys lead-based paint. It's very simple. It's just saying, hey, this is, is there any knowledge of any lead on the property? No? Okay, I don't know. So let's get back to it. I know this one's kind of boring, guys. My bad. Hey, let me know any questions you guys have. All right, so let's get down here. We're almost done, guys. We're almost done. All right, so yeah, disclosures. So title approval. This is saying that what kind of title you're going to order. Is it going to be a title commitment or an abstract title? A title commitment is essentially this packet of papers that tells you if there's any liens, encumbrances, or loans on the property, if there's multiple owners on the property, can you close it? That'll be definitely factors that pop up. And the title company will let you know right on the front page, hey, this is highlighted. You need to correct this. You need to correct this. You need to correct this. Sellers, we as buyers are now going to be in a standstill and be waiting. The second one is abstract. Usually you'll see people opt into the abstract when they're trying to purchase properties that, I'm trying to remember if it's like barren land, I think. No. That's a good question. I'm going to look up the specifics. I used to know it, man, but sometimes you lose touch with all these different specific areas. So let's keep it going. Line 273, owner's title insurance premium. This is that little fee or that insurance cover charge, right, that the title companies are going to make you pay. Sometimes they're $350. Sometimes they're only $100. It depends on what title company you go with. I like Chicago Title Company. If I'm not mistaken, I'm going to overshoot and say that their cost is the $350 to use the title company. And that'll be charged one to the owner and one to the lender. And that lenders, this is another thing that gets very misconstrued. Lenders doesn't always mean, hey, what's up, Senya? Lenders don't always mean that it is, like you going through a bank. You can be buying it cash and you're still going to opt into the lender's title insurance premium, because even when you see the closing statement, it never says buyer, it says borrower. It says lender's side. It says, stuff like that. So yeah, you'll pay for the sellers, or the sellers will pay for theirs, and then you'll pay for yours on the buyer side. And then this will say, of course, I like to always click seller. We'll order that title commitment immediately. So these are 3 different types of ways that taxes can get broken up. I always select the middle one because that's proration. You're not going to pay for anything that you didn't own the property for. We closed today on March 20th. They're going to be responsible for giving you a credit from the last installment until March 20th. Then when you go to pay taxes again, you're going to pay for everything that's going to the next one. All right. So the first one is regarding taxes that you're going to either be paying for up to a certain date or when that closing date is. Let's see here. And then the last one, if I'm not mistaken, constitutes regarding a specific dollar amount. How much do you want from the seller in order to pay for taxes? It just depends. I think the most fair route is always to go the proration route. Right here, 305 to 311, this is talking about exemptions. In the closing, especially if you're going to own or occupy, you're going to get given this colorful piece of paper. Investors, you're not going to get given this colorful piece of paper because, you're investing. It's your, not personal residence. Maybe it is. Maybe you bought a multi-unit and this is what you're doing. But for the most part, that colorful piece of paper is basically a discount ticket. And you're going to take it over to the county recorder's office or treasurer, and you're going to turn it in. They're going to say, okay, you are closing. You closed on a house. This is how much the insurance should be, taxes should be charging you. And it's a great tool. Sometimes it could be I think it's 53% off of whatever your taxes should be on the year if you're doing a owner occupied. So let's keep it going. For you guys, that are investors, it's going to be 2%. Sorry, guys. So 313, proration and special assessments. That's just reiterating about what prorations are. Line 323, time is of the essence. You're going to notice a bunch of dates and times within here. This is what holds the realtor responsible. It also holds you as the buyer, because we are going to be contacting you guys. You're going to be trying to pay attention to the different things you have going on. And the goal is that you don't miss any of these due dates, because you fall behind. And man, it's going to suck, because you're going to feel like you don't know what's going on. You're going to feel mad that, something didn't go your way. It gets very, very frustrating, very easy. Line 327 to 328, no offer is considered fully accepted until all counter offers and offers have been completed. So that's saying, let's say I send the seller a purchase offer with you. They send us a counter. While we're filling out the counter on saying if we accept it or not, he could accept it from somebody else, accept an offer from somebody else, because he sent us a counter. So that's essentially like him passing the ball back to us, and he's ready to play ball with somebody else. So that's something that can be an issue. And if that comes up and he accepts, we accept after he's accepted somebody else, they are superior, the person that has been accepted in a time frame before us. Line 330, homeowners association. If there's a homeowners association, you mark it here. Such and such amount of days to get the required application process, such and such amount of days to be able to fill out the application process, and then such and such days to get approved. Line 349 to 351, this is just saying it is your job to make sure that you are okay with the neighborhood you're investing into. Are you, or purchasing it? Are you okay with that neighborhood? You need to do the research. If you're worried about there being crime and stuff like that, you need to contact either the police department or talk to one of the local resources. There's like Crime Stoppers and different programs like that. But the realtors are never going to tell you, because it's technically against their license law to mention, hey, this area is good, this area is bad. It's called steering. And, we don't want to say who can't go where, So attorney's fees. So in the event that there's a dispute and you guys go to court between you, and the purchaser, and the seller, then you're going to have to essentially see who wins the dispute. Whoever loses is the person that pays for attorney's costs and court fees. Line 357, fair housing. So this is saying, of course, we have to work with everyone, no matter their status on anything. Line 362, I like to call these serious real estate fun facts. If you want to find out if there was a meth lab in the area, there's a website to do that. If you want to find out if there was a sexual offender in the area, there's a website to do that. You obviously will get a purchase offer, or the copy of this agreement, copy of the entire transaction. It'll be through a warranty deed, so you know that you'll be covered for a lifetime of any liens or encumbrances. If you're a foreign person, you'll have to worry about the Foreign Investment in Real Estate Property Tax Act, and a bunch of little tidbits here. Of course, if anything's not respected within this agreement, it's considered a breach of contract, such and such. And if you had a real estate license, you'd have your license number right here. This last page here, further conditions. So this is essentially saying details that would not otherwise be in there. If we're saying, hey, these documents are coming with it. Hey, we're going to need you guys to have this done before we purchase it. That's called a contingency. You guys seen that earlier. That's where you're going to itemize it. And then, of course, this is where a lot of the negotiations happen right off the rip. Now, line 436, consult your advisors. So in the event that you feel like you need to bring an attorney involved, Indiana does not require you to have an attorney. It saves you guys a ton of money. But in the event that you feel like you don't trust the person that's leading you in real estate as your realtor, you have the ability to bring in an attorney, have them review what you're doing. The realtor, myself, I'll give them whatever they need, catch them up to date, and then essentially now we have a partner going through this transaction with us. Line 442, acknowledgments. This is saying that this is essentially saying, is it a limited agency or is it not? A limited agency is saying, does this realtor that you have chosen work for the listing side, or do they only work for you? I would put is not if I was only working with the buyer, but there's been situations where I have worked both sides. That is a very risky area because oftentimes very, very few people can make both sides happy at the same time. I think it's like a 30% success rate for being able to keep both sides happy. But shout out to Senya and Emmanuel. I think we did a pretty good job. I'm pretty sure everybody was pretty happy about that. So line 446, expiration of offer. This is where you're going to say how many days. Usually it's about 24 hours. Your realtor or myself are going to put, hey, tonight is 9 p.m. at on March 20th. We're going to set it for tomorrow at 9 p.m. and they'll have an opportunity to respond. So that is that. Of course, this is regarding and saying again, any amendments or addendums are going to be executed and signed by all parties and attached to this purchase agreement. Line 457, legal remedies / defaults. In the event that one of us just stops associating with each other, you heard me say this multiple times now, guys, then you will have two options. You'll have the option to either get your earnest money out and go seek legal counsel against that seller, or that seller has the same option. They have the option to get your earnest money and go seek legal counsel. Or maybe we still communicate and go through the process, right? That's the goal, right? And then here is where you would put your amazing signatures. For most of you guys, it will be electronic signatures, and that is it. So congratulations, guys. You guys know what a purchase agreement in Indiana looks like. Thank you guys so much for attending. This is only the main document. If you guys want to see more documents, see these addendums and amendments, I'll eventually be going over them and talking about each one. But I'm so happy you guys got an opportunity to see just how Indiana properties are purchased. Hey, if you guys have any questions before I get out of here, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow, okay? Thank you guys so much for coming. All right. I'll talk to you, and let's see if we can get out of here. Boom, 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 boom. Also, give me any advice if you guys know any way that I can start improving this. Hey, thank you, Ryan. If you need anything, man, let me know. Let me know, all of you. Take care, guys.